We're back with Lee Addison from rugbyleaguecoach.com.au, and before we do get started on this week's segment, we'd like to issue a formal apology to Amanda Ohl from the Central Queensland Capras, the head coach over there. We got it wrong last week, Amanda. You've done an outstanding job, and we are behind you 100%.
Absolutely. Amanda, first of all, sorry that I use the term he. I don't research players or coaches. I purely try and look, as you know, Taylor, at what unfolds in front of me on the screen. I try not to make any assumptions about players or coaches so that I can look at it in a fair manner. And it was just a slip of the tongue, an absent-minded moment. For the record, Amanda, based on what I saw in your team last week, you're a fantastic coach, and can I be your assistant next year?
Trying to get a job.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on now, Lee. We are talking about the BMD Premiership, about the grand final this week. So tell me what you broke down.
Well, last week, as I've just alluded to, I looked at the Capras. So just to remind the viewer, a compressed defence, particularly coming out of the opposition exit. That defence spread a little bit back in their own half. Better when they were direct at running. I thought the first set that we analysed last week, they just went over his lines a little bit too much. In good ball, they shifted the ball quite well, and also made some good inroads again from running direct. They are going to have their hands full this week with the Gold Stars. When I get Kel to roll the tape in a minute, they're a very direct running side, strong side, and also very well coached. So Kel, I'll get you to roll the tape if you can, please, and I'll take Taylor and the viewer through this. So we're having a look here at the Gold Stars defensively first. Look at that effort around the ruck. Of course, no ruck is ever perfect, but what I want you to look at now is the line speed. And this is something they maintain for quite a bit of the game. And what they're also doing is they're wrestling the opposition player away from the try line. So they're actually working in conjunction with each other. Their forces aren't working against each other. Obviously, at times, the opponent, in terms of Burley there, got their nose through and they landed on their front. But otherwise, that was quite a compressed defensive line, quite a physical defensive team. A bit like Burley last week in defence, in the sense that they can get a little bit loose in defence occasionally, but otherwise I see a very strong defensive team here. What the Capras have got to do if they're going to make some inroads, whereas last week they move the ball, get the ball outside the Burley defence to score, if you can just pause the tape for me now, Kel. What I want the viewer to look at is the spacings in between each Gold Stars defender. So yes, the line speed was good, particularly coming out of exit. They're a bit more measured in their own half in terms of line speed. I don't think playing too much laterally is going to benefit the Capras early. What they need to do is get into a mentality that they're going to run to bust. And do you remember when we did the two sets last week? The first set was a little bit over his lines. It was part of a strategy. The second set, they were a bit more direct. More of that. In good ball, maybe +1s or +2s, or somebody just screaming back into the line, maybe a change of direction to put pressure on this defence because of those spacings in the Gold Stars defence there. If you can roll the tape again, Kel. There are opportunities, because I do think that if there is any point, that's when the Gold Stars will question their defensive system, where they look anything like rattled at this point, because look, their line speed's really good. They've got good defensive energy, they've got ruck control. You've got to find, when you're looking at a good defensive team, you've got to find one thing that's a chink in the armour, and I just think it's spacings and when they have a bit of time to think about where the ball's going. So I would play a bit more direct against them. Now, last week we looked at how the Capras were really compressed in defence. Amanda has done a great job in compressing a defence. They're going to need to be really tight and far more physical than Burley here. 2 carries of the ball, and already the Gold Stars are on the 40-metre line, or it looks like the 40-metre. Well, third carry onto the 40-metre line. So the compressed defence of the Capras, get the bodies in, and also mentality where they're going to really muscle up in defence. Because my fear is that we might be looking at one of the strongest teams in the BMD Premiership here because of the way they roll forward. Now, Again, every team has a bit of an Achilles heel or something that they're not quite as good at. When we get into good ball, there's a big temptation that you want to move the ball laterally. And once the Gold Stars were moving it laterally, they just don't look as strong. There's 2 good ball sets here in these clips. Look at the difference when they actually hit the ball at pace and go at the line. To me, they're thinking a little bit laterally at the minute. They look a little bit lost. What they do with this set is they get a repeat set at the end of this, and then you'll see the next set. They're now shifting the ball. I love the way they shift the ball, by the way. I mean, they've got across the field really quickly. But because the Burley defence was sort of spread there, they dealt with that quite quickly. But the game smarts, the Stars got themselves an extra set. Now look at the difference in this set. A run nice and direct, and yes, it wasn't a great outcome in terms of collision, but a reasonably quick play the ball. Look how direct this is now. And it's starting to eat away at the Burley defence. That was a run to bust mentality. She didn't bust, so she offloaded the ball. Good go forward. Look at this next play. So this is what I mean about +1s for the Capras. I think they'll have more joy doing some +1s early or +2s and turning the ball back inside to make the Stars defend and the spacings in defence be questioned. Direct running, little bit of offloads, and I'm telling you now, Burley, based on their defence 2 weeks ago, you could tell that they were going to be at 6s and 7s here, because you don't actually know if the Stars are going to go sideways or forwards. They've got some football in them. Ultimately, when they calm things down a little bit, when they go direct, you'll see what happens. Amanda and the Capras this week got to really focus on being physical. Okay? The Gold Stars, they've got to focus on keeping that nice direct play going, because when they are direct, they are really hard to stop. That is as good as I've seen anybody get go forward this year when they were direct. And especially in good ball, the temptation is to move the ball sideways. Yes, that you go sideways with the ball, people go forward, people hit holes. So that's my advice to the Stars. The Capras, when they've got the compressed defence on exit, when the opposition are exiting, really muscle up, possibly umbrella it a tiny bit just to really put pressure on, get the shoulders under the ball and kill those rucks as much as they can. Because if the Gold Stars are going to win this game, it's because they've run over the top. When I was getting the score lines through at the weekend, it sounded like they just got over the top of Burley really quickly.
All right, there you go. Good little breakdown there from Lee Addison at rugbyleaguecoach.com.au. If you do have anything for Lee, make sure you contact him at that website there, and he'll get you all sorts of coaching tips, webinars, seminars, and of course, clinics. Lee, you've got some clinics coming up, holidays.
Now the grounds are drying up, I'm giving it a whirl, because there's a lot of clubs, there's a lot of kids who've not had a lot of football and training, so they're a bit behind the 8 ball. Yeah, so please just reach out.
What can you do with under 6s? I coach an under 6 Redcliffe side.
Okay. Mate, just let them play games. Just let them play games. Let them discover themselves. Don't try and teach them too much. Don't let them queue up for too long in a drill, because they'll get distracted. Just play game after game after game, and they'll love it.
Well, I might get you to support me. I think I'm the first under 6s coach the boardroom's about to sack. So thanks anyway, Lee. We'll see you next